My name's Steve Ferrucci. I work at a VA hospital out here, and I have the EIDON by CENTERVUE. And right now I'm in my office in Porter Ranch, California. And I'm going to chat with my friend John Warren, who's at his office, his home office in Wisconsin. And he's going to talk about how he uses the technology in his practice. And I'm going to kick this back over to you, John. What I'd like you to do, can you tell us a little bit about the COMPASS? I think probably a lot of, I'm not all that familiar with it, and some of our people might be watching might not be.
What are you using for fields?
Unfortunately, a Humphrey.
Yeah, I was an Octopus user for a long time and was actually pretty happy with it as a perimeter. And then the COMPASS came along, and it does two things. One, it does the central imaging very well, as well as nerve head photos and stereo nerve head photos. But it's a projection perimeter, which is different from anything else in that it actually projects the stimulus into the eye. It doesn't present the stimulus on a screen in front of the patient. So there's no need to occlude the patient because of the way the device is set up, and there's no need for trial lenses. So you can't get a trial lens scotoma or any of those other issues, or the tech forget to put it in one time or calculate it wrong, those sort of things. But the really interesting thing is, let me pull this up, is that it takes at the beginning of the exam, it takes an infrared image of the fundus. And we run these dilated. We found we just get better, faster, more reliable fields with these when they're dilated. And the reason for that is it takes an infrared image of the fundus and it actually tracks the fundus. So it doesn't, if the patient drifts 5 or 10 degrees to the right or superior, instead of projecting the stimulus blindly where it thinks the eye is, it actually follows the eye. So you're getting the stimulus, and the values you're getting in location are accurate. So at the bottom of the screen on the graph, you can kind of see my pointer down here. It actually tracks, it shows how well the patient was tracking for the encounter or the exam. And then it gives you pretty similar to the HFA report metrics. Some of the metrics are named differently, I think for intellectual property reasons. But because it does give you fixation information, it gives you information about false negatives, false positives up in the top. But it also gives you the grayscale, total deviation, and pattern deviation, as well as clusters. And it's nice, it shows you a quick little picture of the optic nerve blown up so you can get an idea what this nerve looks like. I mean, you don't do your nerve head evaluation from this photo, but it lets you see where things are. But the really neat thing on the report is it actually shows you where on the retina the defect is. So you'll notice we've got the values here are basically 0 corresponding to the superior defect. So if you've got a patient who has, say, a big retinal scar down here that's going to give you a scotoma, it actually shows you that. You can see if the point's aligned to that or not. Yeah. It's an interesting way to see it on the report, and live on the device, you can actually flip between fundus view and perimetry view to see these differently. But the really groundbreaking thing with it is the way that it basically takes fixation loss out of the equation. And then on subsequent visits, it will, if it knows where it put the points on the retina for the previous exam, it matches those points. So when you're doing a point-by-point comparison over time, it totally takes out fixation loss and drift from the patient. So it's reports the data in a way that's similar to people, but it gathers it in a different way. I mean, the Octopus I thought was a very good perimeter compared to the Humphrey and other devices, but they all rely on tracking the pupil somehow, but not the actual fundus. So, and then when you do a follow-up report, let's see if this is what I'm looking for. No, that's a blown up same report. The follow-up report actually then shows you, previous reports in comparison, gives you a mean deviation progression, shows you the views that are there. So it gives you some very good tracking information to follow change over time. And it actually will show you how each point deviates from the previous test. So you can try to kind of tie the graphical values into the numerical ones. And then it also does a pretty nice job of getting nerve photos on the patients. This is actually a stereo pair that when you view it on the screen at the device, actually I have that view right below. This is how it looks on the device. And then you can actually fuse those. Some people can fuse them freely. I can't. I've got the little Polaroid goggles that let me see one versus the other to actually see it in depth. But it's amazing to see the depth view on these. So You know, you can see that that looks probably similar to a nerve view you get on the EIDON if you were just doing the nerve.
Yeah.
Does the EIDON do stereo nerves too?
Yes, similar to what you said. Some people can fuse it and some can't. I'm one of the can'ts.
Yeah, I can't free fuse it. I have to put my little goggles on and look, not goggles, but little thing I hold in front of my eyes to look at them. But it's a great way to look at the nerve too.
Yeah, no, that COMPASS I think is very intriguing, and you know, in the older patient population, you know, with the Humphrey, and I said unfortunately I have a Humphrey. I mean, it's just so unreliable. You get so many fixation errors and other errors that so often you have to throw it away. Do you find that, you know, you're able to get more consistent, good visual fields?
Absolutely. You know, the octopus that it replaced would do a threshold field in about 2.5 to 2 hours. Patients
Yeah, sometimes it seems it.
2 minutes and 45 seconds, and this takes about 4 minutes for most patients. So it's a slightly longer field, but, and I've always been one to say the sooner we can get the field done, the more reliable the data is.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of long fields, but it's funny, the patients that complain about these fields taking 4 minutes are the same ones that complain about the octopus taking 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You know, it's amazing how patients adapt to the testing we use, but I find it to be much more reliable. You know, if it's a new defect on a suspect or a treated patient, I will bring them back to confirm that before I'm going to start treating them.
Sure.
But it's more out of habit than anything else for most of these patients. And I'm bringing back for that. The follow-ups just tend to be so accurate. So, you know, it is a subjective test. So if the patient's just not paying attention that day, you're going to get bad results. You know, you can take out most of the errors from trial lenses and you can take out the errors of fixation, but you can't take out patient error from just not being engaged.
Yeah, well, that's impossible so far.
It's a really subjective test. So, and that's actually was the first CENTERVUE product that I had was the COMPASS. And when Lucas said, hey, would you like to check out the DRSplus? I'm like, sure, right, ship it in. And I said, I'll check it out for you. And it's now mine. It's not going back. So.
Yeah, great. The other thing I should mention, I forgot to mention, you know, about the EIDON, it also has autofluorescence as well, which I don't use, you know, in every single patient, but I think it is helpful in certain instances. So that's a nice option to have as well, the autofluoresce. So yeah.
My OptoMap does that, but I don't want to run somebody through the OptoMap just to do an autofluoresce on them. So I haven't been using that significantly. And I just haven't found it, for me personally, to be a big clinical influencer as far as how I take care of patients. Not saying it's not valuable, and if I use it more, I may change the way I feel about it. But
yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. There's a select times when it's helpful, but it's not helpful in every single patient or nearly or that larger percentage. Fantastic.
So,
all right. Anything else you want to?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, hopefully, maybe Expo West will happen, and you can actually have a beer or a cigar or a bourbon or whatever.
I'm more of a bourbon Scotch guy, but that sounds good.
For the most part too. But
good. No, that would sound great. So fantastic. Well, nice talking to you, John, and hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks. Nice talking.